Today we've got Craig Madden with us. Craig, we spoke yesterday on TikTok, and you're all about, is it coaching for stressful dads? Is that right?
Yeah, so I help basically stress dads, hardworking dads, like find happiness and calm in life. Basically, that's what I do or decided to do over the last year or so. So
Nice. Well, we'll start from the beginning, mate. We'll learn a bit more about you first and where you're from. Sounds like you're from Wales, the same as me.
Yes, South Wales, yeah.
Yeah, and just give me a bit more about yourself and what your hobbies, interests were, and things like that, and what sort of led you to the position that you're in now.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for asking, Lee. So basically, I'm Craig Madden. I was born in Bridgend, South Wales. Basically moved between there, Puthgall, Bridgend, different areas, and then I was age of 16. I signed up for the army, joined at 17, spent 15 years with tours of Afghan, etc. Sort of loved, as I was leaving the army, I sort of loved the leadership side to it, but unfortunately my health let me down. I got at the age of 30, I got a pacemaker fitted due to heart issues and other things. And then obviously from there, high levels of stress led into mental health. This time last year, I unfortunately tried twice to take my own life. And that was the wake-up call for me, really, was like I got to that end. I'm a dad to 3 and it got that bad. To know that it was almost like a moment where I remember looking in the mirror thinking something needs to change, obviously. And it slowly progressed towards really helping myself first. Like, if you can't fill anyone else's cup if yours is empty sort of thing. And it was weird, but just as I slowly started to learn more about stress, learn more about mental health, learn more about being masculinity and stuff like that, I started to learn more about how I could help others. I was teaching at the time, and I remember taking people aside and chatting to them and talking to them, and I could see the light in their face, like, oh, that you're onto something there. And it felt so good that I eventually started to do coaching and been helping clients now around the world. I say around the world, it's mainly UK and USA, but it's been really fun, and it helps you more quite selfishly in a way, because it does help you as much as it helps them, because you see and learn off them as well. So it's been a journey, but I love being where I'm at now.
Sounds apart from the military aspect of it, it sounds very similar to where I am in life at the moment. So I won't go too much into detail on mine, because I said I'm sort of having the tendency to having to explain my scenario and situation every podcast that I've done. But again, 3 years ago, tried to do the exact same thing as what you did. Drug addiction, things like that, through COVID. And I'm sort of in that same position now, whereas I'm actually learning some coaching tools and things like that. So I've signed up to called Transformation Academy, and I'm just going through their tools at the moment and their processes and how their teachings and things like that. And I'm learning to sort of not be the same as you, but I want to find my own niche. So I don't know where that is. That's going to be 12 months, 2 years down the line. But I'm sort of in that process where I was an extremely broken person. Now I've learned to pick myself up, rebuild, the base with some strong, a strong base, shall we say. And I'm just taking it as it comes. I'm just rolling with it. I'm not saying this is my direction. I feel as though, if I put the work in, my direction or my true north, shall we say, will show itself. It'll show its face to me in the end. And so I'm enjoying it, mate. I've been doing a bit of cognitive behavioral therapy today. I've been doing a bit of NLP, and I've been doing like happiness and mindset coaching. So I'm really enjoying it, mate. Really enjoying it.
It changes the aspect, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. But going back to your military days, what regiment were you in?
So I was in the Army Air Corps whilst I was in. So I switched between the regiments and there. And my final station, or my final posting, was a place called Middle Wallop, where I was doing instructing and teaching. Sort of where I just loved the teaching side to it, and that was probably where I was at my most stressed. It was more because of me. It was definitely because of me, because I didn't know when to say no. I didn't know when to sort of hold off, calm down, relax, spend time with the family. So I did sort of put myself into a rut, really. I don't blame anyone else.
Couldn't switch off.
Yeah, just couldn't. And so one of the diagnoses I got from when I left the army was recently, probably the last 12 months, was bipolar disorder. And that was around about the time it all sort of came crashed down, because I lost two really close family members in the same week, because it was Remembrance Day, my first day out at the army, and at the same time I got told I had bipolar disorder and they were trying all these meds, and so it was a confusing time, and I thought there was like no way I could break out of it. I thought, well, this is me now, and yes, I will have bipolar disorder forever, but the way if you were to speak to me, if we were speaking last year, well, a year and a bit now, it'd be a completely different person, different positive attitude, a lot of weight on, definitely a lot of weight back then, no muscle. Like, my life's completely changed because of all the stuff you just mentioned then, really, just going through those sort of therapies and NLP and coaching techniques.
And I guess, I've said this before, mate, I don't like using the terminology, we've got to hit rock bottom, because the only way is up from rock bottom, which I don't disagree, because, as you know, there's a lot of men, especially in Wales, that are killing themselves at the moment. So when we hit rock bottom, there isn't only one way. Sometimes we get buried. But yeah, I mean, just having that experience of being down in the darkness, I call it, it gives you that sort of appreciation and gratitude for what is when it is. So as we're learning and as we're taking all these new abilities and new tools away from what we're learning, I guess for me especially, it's given me like this newfound appreciation as to what is and what has been, if you understand.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So obviously the mental health issues that you had, they were obviously, I'd imagine they were sort of PTSD, maybe from coming out of the military and things like that. I've got I live in North Wales, a little town called Flint. And I've got a lot of friends and family who are in the Royal Welsh or the Welsh Guards and things like that. So I can sort of relate to that. Not me personally, but a lot of family and friends can relate to where you were. So just touching on the work that you do, mate, I've got some questions here for you.
Yeah, of course.
Let's just get this up. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you think modern dads face in balancing work and family life?
In today's society, it's very difficult. It's a multitude of things. It's something I deal with quite a lot with my clients. A lot of them, it's usually societal pressures, usually. It's almost like at the moment, I find when I look at a lot of my clients at the beginning, they look like lost sheep walking around a field. They just don't know where they are, almost, because we are naturally inclined to watch quick snips on and snaps on social media. We become inclined to think that is truth, that is understanding, that is information, that is knowledge, that is fact. So a lot of the dads that I speak to, in recent client I spoke to him today, just say, if he doesn't mind me mentioning, obviously not by name, but just his sort of situation, like he is constantly looking at social media as almost like a dictionary of what men, or an encyclopedia of what men should be like in today's society. That's in the workplace and at home. Many years ago, as we all know, a dad would have had a pressure. It would have been mainly work. It would have been a certain aspect at home. But at the moment, I think men are lost because they're trying to work out, like, well, do I need to be the dad? Do I need to be the strong dad, the resilient dad, the masculine dad? Do I need to be a feminine dad? Do I need to be a bit softer? Do I need to be a bit harder? Do I need to not speak because I need to be tough? And I really thought it was all difficult. In fact, in books and stuff that I've written, that was something I really struggled with and caused a lot of stress, because I was like, well, I'm trying to be manly, but at the same time, if I'm too manly, I'm not liked. And that was because the brainworm of social media sort of destroyed that for me. And one of the things I did is close myself off from that and just lived my life the way that my perception was. So there's so many things at the moment with work. Everybody knows. I don't think I'd love for someone to leave a comment to say that, oh yeah, no, we're not really like that at work. But how many workplaces have you ever heard say that we're not understaffed? Have you ever noticed? You go to every workplace to say, oh, we're so understaffed. It's because companies can only afford, especially in corporate, they can only afford a certain amount of people, but the job And you think of everything from health, safety, everything we do these days, EDI training, the lot of it is just piling on people of information that you have to learn just to do a normal job.
Yeah.
So what used to be 30 years ago, you'd be busy at work, you'd go home, you'd still be stressed, but a very, very different type of stress. At the moment, you've got to have like a knowledge on 100 things, or you might not be good enough for the job. So my advice to everybody is always this: your kids, if you're a dad, your kids like mini therapists. And if you've got someone to talk to them about it. Because at the end of the day, I did a poll quite a while ago, and I put some statistics in, and it was basically about how much time you actually spend at work. It's actually not as much time as you think if you put a percentage. I think I did the average of 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday, etc. And it's not high percentages that you actually work, taking away sleep. So in those times that you're not working, please spend every moment of your living life on what I just said. It's called work-life balance, not work, wait for work balance. It's work-life balance. So when you're not working, we've all got to make money. We've all got to make the buck to, pay taxes and whatnot. That's the situation we're in. Just enjoy those moments of life. If you've got kids, spend every moment you can with them. If you've got hobbies and stuff, don't put them aside because, you need to get a report done for the next day. You need to stay late on site to do some extra work. Like, make sure you're taking that time. I've seen so many men, and so many of my clients are so scared to almost not do the extra work. And all you're doing is aiming for promotion. I guarantee you, it's hardly anyone that's laid on a deathbed before and looked back at their life and said, "Oh, I wish I worked a bit harder." No one's ever said that. They've always wondered how much of their life did they live, what places did they visit, how much they loved their family, how their family thought about them. So just live your life and work. It's hard to say, Lee, and you might get some people say it, they say, family first, work second. It's hard to say that to some people because they're so hardwired and thinking, well, if I don't work, then my family suffer. So where do I balance it? So I've always said to my clients, you really need to learn the balance, learn what you can do at work, the boundaries of what you need to do at work, not what you need to do at work. And then just please enjoy every moment you can at home or whatever you do. Stuff like we're doing, progress and develop yourself as well.
Yeah. And I think I've been sort of both ends of that scale. So probably 6-7 years ago, I used to work, do a lot of overtime just to probably not even in the sense of providing for my kids, because that was always, that was always going to happen. It was more like an ego thing to say, "Oh, I've earned X amount of money." Do you know what I mean? It was, I've earned 60, 70 grand this year or whatever, and look at this, and really good, and like, it means absolutely fuck all. And obviously, after going through COVID and things like that, and again, long story short, separated. My children don't live with me no more. I lived with them for the best part of 12 years, say.
Yeah.
And they don't live with me now. So, but I still see them twice a week, maybe more, maybe, depending. I take my daughter to jiu-jitsu a couple of times a week. My son will come here when he wants feeding. He's nearly 17, so, he's out and about with his friends and doing whatever. Yeah. He's a good kid, though. He's a good kid. He's not that type. He's not a street kid. He just keeps himself to himself with a small group of friends.
Yeah, that's good.
But so what I'm trying to say is I've been on both ends where I think I worked too much at one point and I missed. My daughter went from probably 6 years old to 10 years old like that.
Oh yeah.
Geez, where's my little daughter gone? So I think it's difficult finding that balance, isn't it? And a lot of people, I think we don't realize, it's that old saying, you don't realize what you've got till it's gone. And when the kids are young and you think they're going to be young forever, and then all of a sudden, like my son, he's nearly 17 now, and I'm like, he's stood next to me, he's 6'2", he's nearly as big as me. I'm like, where have you come from? You were a little boy, you were a little baby 5 minutes ago. I know you're 17. So I completely agree with that, mate. Second question. Sorry, mate, go on.
So I was just going to add on to what you said, really. Is like my son, Dylan, now he's 5. My oldest is 17 as well. But my youngest, I missed the first year of his birth, first year of his life. Like, obviously, I saw him now and again, but I was away so many times his first year and a half. We didn't have a bond. There's nothing. But now, since I've changed the way I am, we're like that now. So It's just, it is very important.
Must be tough. Was he your firstborn?
So the 17-year-old is technically not mine biologically, but his dad's not really around that much, so he decided to change his name and take my name. And
yeah. But yeah, and it's one of them, especially if you're not being round, and you know, it's a big part of your life as well, I guess, when the kids are that small and you're working away and you're thinking, you know, what's going on, how are they, and so yeah, it's tough. And to be honest, mate, before speaking to you, I'd never really sort of thought of this, you know, the working stress of being a father. You know, we're men and women, we're all under stress, but I think what you're doing is really relative to all of us, really. And I'd never even thought about it until I actually seen what you were doing. And I think because sort of the social construct at the moment is so inflated with 1,000 different things, the sort of working stressful life of a dad, sort of, in my opinion, is sort of right at the bottom of this hierarchy of so much chaos going on in the world. So yeah, I think it's a brilliant idea as what you're doing, because there's definitely a lot of men that will definitely need your help.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I'm happy to help them. It's been a journey so far, and I've loved every minute of it. The end result's just always, I can't even explain it. It's definitely like a euphoria at the end of the program, or just seeing them. And you know, I've been lucky to have 100% so far. You know, there's always going to be one that may not be hit that 100%. So I hope I don't ruin that. But it's been really, really, really fun.
That's cool. Second question, mate. How has the role of fathers changed compared to the previous generation of fathers?
That is a really, really, really good question. And do you know what? It's twofold for me. I think we've become more educated as dads, which is a good thing, but it also comes with caveats. I think we've become much more educated about how to bring up kids as a father, because we've got more science behind the way, and neurology, sort of neurological sort of standpoint. We understand what stress is. We understand what too much masculinity can cause, not enough masculinity. And sometimes the caveats to that, though, if you look at previous generations, you know, to sit there and say you're the perfect father is an absolute lie. There is no perfect father out there. There's no perfect mother out there.
Yeah.
You know, it's an old saying, isn't it? But there's no books on parenting. Ironically, there is, but there's no books on how Lee grew up and how you had to parent, because your kids will have different ideas and perspectives and like a culture around them. So for me, we've become more educated, we've become more smart, and that's usually because of technology. But I think the downside to it is that we've become very lost, and it's almost been glazed over. We're so worried, I think, in today's society. Again, apologies for going back to society again, but I think for dads in this generation, we're so scared and so worried. And all the groups I'm in, the community groups, my group, there's so many dads that are panicking and worried about getting married, which is crazy. We can go back to this if you want, but the statistics are crazy. But the amount of dads that I'll speak to, or just even if it's just a conversation, they'll say, like, I'm really worried about getting married because of what can happen to me. Dads are worried about being too soft on their kids, because then they see what social media does to their kids, and then they feel like they need to be more strict, but then they're scared about being strict. So like I said, we've become so much more educated, but I think it's been too fast. Like, technology's moved really quick. I mean, with AI and stuff now, technology's moved so fast that even though we've become smarter, I think we haven't caught up with the wave of what's going on in society at the moment. You know, I think it's easy for a lot of men and women today to go, oh, men is not as tough and strong as they were back in the day. And you could argue yes, you could argue no, and that doesn't really wash me. I don't really care what was stronger, what was not, what's deemed strength and all that sort of stuff. But what I do care about is that we need to press the pause button a little bit, really, when it comes to being a father. It's not about what every other father out there is doing. It's what you are doing as a father. Everyone else has got a different situation. Me and you have just talked about it. We've got different situations. So how you would have to father is going to be completely different to how I have to father. And that's such a big thing for me. So I think the big, massive difference is education, but I think we do need just to press the pause button of it. I think why men's mental health is taking an all-time hit is because we just feel like no matter what we do, we're failing. We're either not masculine enough, we're not strong enough, we're too masculine, we're too toxic, we're too flamboyant, we're too, so we just need to take a little bit of a pause and try and almost take that breath and capture what a real dad should be doing. And I'm not going to sit there. I think it would be a bit wrong of me to say I've done it, like, because I'm still learning. But what I have done in my life, I've got to a point where I can see not only the difference in myself, but the difference in my kids, my relationship. My relationship was like a sinking boat at one point. So, and the only reason I saved that is because I stopped looking at what everyone else was doing and looked at myself and what I needed to do. And it worked for me. And that's because I understood my limits. I understood where I was going wrong, my anger, my stress, and I just reeled it back in. And now, like, me and my kids have. I think sometimes the wife's a bit jealous, to be honest, because the kids always seem to come up to me and, like, it's all about dad sort of thing. So I think that's because the way I operate around them.
Yeah, it shows what you are, who you are as a father. Then I guess.
Yeah, and it does. And she is an amazing mum, by the way, like, absolutely amazing. Like, I'm blessed to have her. Like, I can't take all of the credit by any chance, because I'll always shout out my wife. She's saved me when I was in that abyss. She was the one there picking up the pieces whilst I was falling. And you said about earlier rock bottom, and she was the one who raised her hand out. She's Eastern European, so she's a bit more traditional, and she does care for the men's health. But yeah, I'm really proud of myself as well, because I could have just done a lot more things.
Should be as well.
Same with you. I was just about to say the same with you. You know, like, I've seen some of your podcasts, and, you know, talking about what you did or what you went through, and where you turned to at points to become to be a vice for you at those times.
Yeah.
And you could have carried on going, and you could be not sitting in front of me now. So,
well, it was almost a guarantee that if I'd have carried on, I wouldn't be here. That's a guarantee. The one thing I've always struggled with, mate, and I don't know about you, is I've always struggled with self-appreciation and giving myself a pat on the back. The one thing that I've learned, especially with this training that I'm doing at the moment, is, and I've always sort of known this, there's a quote, I can't remember the quote, by Bruce Lee, but spelling is called spelling because it's sort of an incantation for spells, and the words that we say have a big, effect on our body and our mind and things like that.
Yeah.
And because I've always had this sort of self-hatred for myself, it took me a long time to give myself a pat on the back, but it's lately, only the last couple of months, that I've been learning to realise that I do deserve a pat on the back for the things that I'm doing. And, it's sort of lifted a massive weight off my shoulders, because I've always beat myself up for the fact that I don't live with my children no more. And am I going to be the same as my father and my mother were when I was a kid, and all this type of thing, and having to worry about all the toxic things or negative things that I've done in my life? Are they going to have an adverse effect on my children and things like this? But at the end of and I like what you said before, because I've said the exact same thing. So there's no book. There is books on how to parent, but there's no books on how to live life day by day with yourself and your children. You know, we're all making it up as we go along, every single one of us. And I just want to touch on what you said about the modern day father versus the previous generation. So you said that obviously there's this opinion at the moment that today's generation of men aren't as strong and sort of masculine and was sort of demasculated generation versus the last generation, which I agree with. But it's almost, you can't sort of be that masculine type person anymore, because if you do, you're almost condemned to be this toxic masculine individual. And don't get me wrong, I agree that all men have got toxic traits, and it's how we deal with them when they arise and things like that. Everybody's got good and bad parts about them. And the other part that you said there as well, with feeling lost. I don't know if you've seen it on one of my clips, but I wrote 10 chapters for a book. I haven't started writing the book yet. The first chapter is called The Lost Boys, because I was one of them people that I genuinely felt lost in society. I didn't understand where I belonged. I didn't understand where to go, what to do, how to be, how to feel, anything. So, and I guess that was a big part of why I sort of lost myself and fell into the addiction that I did.
Yeah.
It's only when I've started to realise who I am as a person and what sort of my ambition and goal is in life that I've learned to regulate my emotions and understand myself and push forward in the direction that I want to go.
If you haven't got the keys to the car, you can't drive it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But everything that you just said so far, mate, I completely agree with.
And
third question. Sorry, go on, mate.
It's something you said then about like feeling lost, and prior to that, talking about like it seems as toxic masculinity. I think one of my favorite things, and it's come from a client, so copyright there, saying that I think they got it from somewhere else, but it just sort of resonated with me, and I've used it with other clients, was if you're a person with a big angry lion in a cage, you are the most feared and person in the world. You're almost a king, but you don't have to bring the lion out. But when you need the lion and it's not there, life is tough. And all he's trying to say is that masculinity is only toxic if, as you mentioned, you're using the toxic traits to masculinity. So letting the lion out is needed sometimes.
Have you heard of a guy he's a samurai in the 1400s called Miyamoto Musashi? He wrote a book called The Book of Five Rings. Joe Rogan speaks about it a little bit. I've got it here somewhere. Mm-hmm. But he was a samurai in the 1400s. Never lost a single battle. He was a dual wielding samurai. He actually beat one guy with a paddle off a boat. Yeah. But he was an artist. He was a poet. He was a gardener. He was a samurai martial artist. He liked doing all these array of different things. And one of his famous quotes is similar to that, where he says, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yes, I've heard that saying, yeah.
I love that saying. I love it.
Yeah.
Next question. Do you think society provides enough support for stressed fathers? Why or why not?
So no, I don't think they do at the moment. And I know it's a blunt answer to say no straight away without probably giving a pre-included discussion on it. I think there is definitely more than in the last 20 years it's grown. The reason I think it's still not out there is because of men. I think that men are still trying to work out the difference between weakness and strength within talking to someone. Now, there's a very big difference from talking to someone that you are having a natural struggle, something's not right in life. I'm definitely one of those people, by the way, because I did not talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And I still have these moments where I have to go away and go, I probably should have told my wife that. I probably should have said this to the doctor. I probably should have done this, right? So we all learn. And the issue is men just need to understand that, like we hear so many slogans and stuff all the time sometimes where it's like, if you talk, it makes you stronger. It's like, it's so a cop out. It's so easy to say, like, if you talk, it makes you stronger. It's not that it makes you stronger. It's just about being educated. It's like, for instance, if you're falling off a mountain, you're about to fall off a cliff, there's a person with their back to you looking the other way, and you're about to fall. If you don't call, you're going to drop to the bottom. It doesn't make you weak to put your hand out and ask them to quickly pull you up. And you can pull yourself up the rest of the way. As long as they raise your hand out so you don't fall down that cliff, you can pull yourself up the rest of the way. So what I say to clients, what I've said to people I've had discussions with, some old students that I was teaching, is for men, it's not, if we don't, I don't know if you're the same, Lee. I hated, should I say, when I used to go into like a therapist or something and they were like, oh, are you okay? It just didn't suit with me. And I was just like, why are you talking to me like I'm a child? So I'm a bit more I'm a bit more blunt. I'm a bit more like no BS, like let's just get it done. A bit more manly behind it. A bit controversial to say, I understand. But for men, sometimes it's not about getting someone to grab you and pull you all the way up to the top of the cliff. It's about that first bit of hand so they can just hold it out so you can literally pull yourself up. And I think a lot of men need that. So what they end up doing is that they fall so much that by the time that person turns around to grab their arm, they've already fallen. So we need to teach men, and I think men need to teach something that you're doing at the moment, something I've definitely been doing, is you can help yourself. You can still be a man. You can still be seen as a man in, society, however you see it. But you definitely need that first little pull up that cliff. And I did a picture previously with clients to show them that, because sometimes it's a bit hard to explain. But if you imagine falling off that cliff, that first grab of that hand is just enough for you to pull yourself up. And then I always go into, but to pull yourself up, you can't do it if you're weak. You've got to pull yourself up, and you've got to get up that mountain yourself. I said, you can't also pull yourself up that mountain if you feel like you just want to fall back anyway because you're tired. So for me, I always explain, it's what you've gone through is because you're resilient, and there's nothing weak about it. You have 73% of men, I think it was in 2022, maybe 2023, unalive themselves. Should I say 73% of people in the UK unalive themselves were working class men in 2023 in the UK. That's a scary statistic. 6,000, I think it's 5,400 it works out of how many people have actually unalived. That's because they didn't ask for that help at the beginning. And where you are now, Lee, that you've only got here through resilience and that strength and being strong. You haven't got here because someone's dragged you all the way with a rope. Do you know what I mean? And I'm hoping you're sort of feeling that vibe as you go through life. You are a strong person. You're getting stronger as you move through.
Yeah, and I think again, it's sort of it's another word that I don't like using, but it's that. Sorry, does this sound echoey? This voice, or does it sound okay?
No, it's fine on mine.
Yeah, cool. It's the word victim mentality. I've been hearing this word a lot lately. On one hand, it sort of triggers me a little bit, but on the other hand, I agree. So, for a long, long time, I sort of had this mentality as though the world owes me a favour, and the world hasn't provided me with this favour yet. Why isn't it giving me this favour? The world hurt me as a young lad, and it's not doing anything for me, and I just keep getting worse and worse and worse, and I'm worse and worse and worse, and I'm fucking up more and more and more. It's going to happen eventually, the universe will give me something and I'll be all right. And then when you sat there on the floor on your own with thinking, I'm about to take my own life, and you're like, well, fuck it, the world doesn't owe me nothing. The one thing I've learned with this training and these tools that I've been reading and listening to, a lot of the stuff I think I already know because I've been through it, and I think a lot of people will have been the same way. Most people who have struggled, if you listen to a lot of these teachings and things like that, you know these things already. It's just about unlocking certain parts of your brain and allowing yourself to listen to these things and understand them and use them. Obviously, the tools, certain tools and methodologies and things like that, there's hundreds of them, but the actual subconscious ability to, control your emotions and be mindful and understand what real happiness is or fake happiness is, or the social construct of what society wants us to be, and how we know all these things. Jordan Peterson said that, people who say that they've got problems, which we all do. We all, at one point, we say we're struggling. And you can sit at the end of your bed and write all of your problems down on a piece of paper because you know what all your problems are. We all do. We know what our problems are. It's just, it's down to us to not even fix those problems at first, learn to understand them. And I guess that's a part of what you do.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I always say that in coaching, and the reason I sort of went into it was because I enjoyed my journey. It's like a mental cop out that is. Like, I didn't enjoy my journey, but I enjoy looking back on it. Is what I mean. Definitely didn't enjoy a lot of it, but I definitely look back and enjoy it. And the reason look back and enjoy the thought of it and like how I am now. And I really do think the reason of that, and is what I say to clients, and I think what coaches, this terminology, a lot of coaches could use is, the coach isn't the pilot at all in this situation. If anything, the coach is the co-pilot. The person flying the plane, their journey, driving the car. The coach is the passenger, the co-pilot. Yeah. The pilot is the person driving. And I think for my clients, it shocks them a bit, especially in the UK, because coaching is not a big thing in the UK. It's quite big in America. So a lot of the American clients I get, they're straight in, they sort of understand how it's going to work. Where the British clients, I've noticed you've got like sort of almost tee them onto it a little bit, like this is what I actually do. And you always get through a breakthrough point. It's usually around, for me, is around about the resilience building. So it's by like week 6 to 8, and before lifestyle changes. And they're always the same. They always have like this breakthrough moment, like how strong they realize they were. They just never knew it. And it's like, it's always, I always do it halfway through, because I always say we'll have this wheel of life assessment. You may have seen it on some of the tools
Yeah,
that
I've
you
seen
used.
the Wheel of Life. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I use that, and they'll see how much they've grown and how much more happier they are, how much more fulfilled they feel, how much more resilient, for instance, in my wheel of life assessment. And they just look sometimes at the camera, they go quiet most of the time, and then they'll just go, and they're about to say something, and I always cut them off because I know they're going to say, like, thank you so much, or they do that, and I stop them and I say, you did this. How crazy is that? You've always had it in, like, so I know it's so cliche, so cheesy, but it's like you've had this inside you the whole time, and all you've done is come to me. I've given you the key. Here's the key, and you've unlocked it and gone, oh my God, look at my potential and what I can do.
Powerful stuff, man. I'm really starting to really enjoy it. And again, it's brand new for me, but it's really sort of resonating with me a lot of it. And yeah,
100%.
looking forward to it, mate. Yeah. Next question, mate. What can families and communities do to help dads feel less isolated in their parenting roles?
It's simple answer, really. Let them be dads.
Yeah.
Let them be dads. Dads be dadding. Dads just want to be dads, and we have it within us. It's a biological sense, and obviously that comes with caveats. You're always going to have the dads that, you know, to name them deadbeat dads and all that sort of stuff is probably a little bit too far. But, you know, you do get dads who don't want to be a part of the kids' lives, and, you know, we all have strong beliefs against them, especially for a dad. And sorry to bring it up, you know, in your situation, you are wanting to see your kids, and you would, I'm sure, do anything to see more of. And I apologize for your situation in that case. But, like, you know, you probably have more of a resentment towards those dads walking away now because of your situation that way. But, like, you just want to be a dad, right? Like, you don't want people looking over your shoulder and judging you for everything you do. We always want help to learn, to grow. And I think the best teachers in the world when about being a dad are the kids. You'll see the reaction. You'll see the way they react towards you. You'll feel the love. So dads, a bit of a, I don't like really too much scientific stuff, but we've got a different way of reacting with our kids. It's probably, I'll maybe say this and you'll go, yeah, I understand. It happens to me. A lot of dads are probably watching and go, yeah, that's me. With mums, they have a release of oxytocin, which is like the release of stress within their body. If they nurture, when a child is hurt and they hug, or a child is sick and they hug, or any sort of natural cuddling and stuff. And the dads get the same, but not as much. But the dads, believe it or not, the more we get of a release of oxytocin, the kids get some mirror image of that as well whilst we're doing it, is those moments where you have a little laugh, you play around, you mess around, you get home and they shout your name, that sort of stuff, because we're built to have a different type of relationship with them, because we were never really bonded from birth in that way that a mother would, because they got those maternal instincts. So just, yeah, like for me, it's such a big thing. Dads just need to just be dads, just be happy. Like, I think there's a lot of men out there that feel like they can't proud to be a dad. Like, my message is, please, you will save your life if you're proud to be a dad. I think they saved my life when I was trying to unalive. It was my son's bed that I looked at that stopped me and calling the ambulance, etc. But and I guess my final point on all of that is that men are more likely to struggle being lonely, because we have this tendency to want to be needed. We like that feeling of somebody wanting our help, needing our help. So yeah, like, just be a dad, just be proud of who you are, and please, every moment you got, spend with those kids, and just, you know, just make every moment count. Because I know I'm sure you do it with your 17-year-old. You talked about how quick it is, but, you know, the memories that you will remember, you don't remember the crap memories. If I was to say to you, think of your son now when he was 5 years old, you don't go, oh, remember that time he did that bad thing, or remember I shouted at him. Yeah. You don't do that. You naturally go back and go, oh, when he was 5, he did this funny thing, or when he was 5, I used to take him to football, whatever it was. So just be a dad and enjoy the moments.
It's funny, mate, because what we touched on before, about sort of the work, the split, the work, parenting, sort of a balance, if you like. And the last couple of years when I actually lived with my kids, I probably, don't get me wrong, my children are older now, but my relationship with them now is fantastic. Like, it's really, really good. When they come to my house, we'll laugh and joke. And my son's very much like me. He's quite a bit comedic. So he's got sort of my wit about him, and it's funny. I'm pissing myself laughing. When he's here, he's so funny. My daughter, like I say, I'll go to jiu-jitsu with her, so I spend a lot of quality time with just me and her. But yeah, I think sort of the issue that I had was because obviously I don't live with him no more. I feel like I failed as a dad. When I know I haven't, that's just a part of life, and I've got to accept, like I said before, be taking on a different sort of parental role than what I'm used to.
Well, definitely, you can't. It's the word you just used then. Apologies, you add the ed at the end there, and you said failed. It's weird that you failed when you still have this amazing relationship with them. Do you know what I mean?
I get it.
And just to put it out there on a plate as well, like you've literally just in the last 20 seconds proven my point about just be a dad, you'll love it, because everything you just said about your son and your daughter, the whole time you were smiling through it. And if I was to ask you talking to me about work, you wouldn't be smiling, would you? You'd just naturally be talking. But the pride you feel as a dad, you just proved my point in 20 seconds. You were smiling for the whole time, so proves my point.
It's emotion. And you're dead right, mate. And it's emotional, and I think it does. It's one of my biggest. It's one of my biggest things at the moment. Is that fucking hell.
That's right, mate. Take your time, mate.
It's one of my biggest worries as a parent now that I fail the way my parents failed, because I didn't live with my dad. He never lived with me my whole life. When you spoke before about that ability to feel love from your parents, I didn't really feel a lot of that when I was younger.
Absolutely, mate. I can relate. I was the opposite to you, though. I was with my father. My mother moved away when I was 2, so it was the other way for me.
Yeah, I sort of reached onto my grandparents. So even my mother now, I've got a relationship with my mother. I get on with her well, but and she knows this. I've spoken to her multiple times. There's things that I sort of resented her for a long time, but I'm doing my best to sort of accept it for what it is, and and sort of move on. My dad, I speak to him now. He's more like a mate than he is my dad. My grandparents, for me, they were sort of my granddad was my hero. My grandmother was the woman I'd always go to if I was scared, or and you'd just go there and she'd make everything all right. You'd sit down for 20 minutes with her and you'd feel fine. Whereas that's sort of where my fear of failure comes from as being a parent, was this is how I feel as a child, or the child of 2 other people. That's not what I want my children to feel like. And again, that's not me having a pop at my parents. That's just my fears of what. But I know, like my missus, she said, my son. I had this sort of worry of resentment about my son over the last couple of years, because he's getting older. Like I say, he's 17 now, so he's going through the stages of girls and aftershaves, smothered in aftershave, and showers, and 4 showers a day, and all this type of thing. And I barely see him. Whereas, if you go back 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was with him every day. We'd go to football 2 or 3 times a week, whatever it may be. But obviously, when I was working more, that sort of dropped off a little bit. So I had this resentment that, I thought he resented me. And he came here Boxing Day this year, and it was probably one of the best days I've had with my missus, her children, and my children, because he came here, he gave me girlfriend a hug, he was playing with her kids, he was taking photos with her and with my girlfriend, her kids, and my daughter, and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And all that sort of fear of being resented or being pushed away by my son's gone now. I sort of understand he's at that time in his life where, he's turning into a young man. He doesn't want to be around his dad. He wants to be with his mates. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that was my biggest worry.
But it's my, again, proving my point, I guess, there, because it was your son that made you see the light on that as well. Something that you had the fear of something happening, and the change of perception on it was to see the evidence, really, wasn't it? The devil in the detail was to see your son have that moment. It's quite amazing how much me and you've got in common with family, actually, apart from the switch. I lived with my mum, I lived with my dad, and my nan and granddad, they also helped raise me, really. And, they were, my granddad was just a legend, typical Welsh legend. He was and, they were the grandparents I was talking about last year, that they, that passed away. It was my other granddad as well. So it was a tough time. And, it's, you look at these people, and I'm really interested in what you said about there, because again, so many people turn to me and say, like, oh, I'm worried. Either I'm worried to turn up like my parents, and again, it's no dig to them, or they say, my father was a really good dad and I'm not going to hit his level of like what he was. I don't think I'm going to be as good. And they almost, it's just built into us to, and that's, I think that's where the fear of resentment came into you. Cause I've got a 5-year-old boy, the 17-year-old, I'm not worried because we have like a typical male relationship. He speaks to me when he needs to, I give him advice when he needs to, same. Like sort of thing. Yeah. But my son and me are like, it's like a very, very close bond. And I know as it grows up, no, in fact, I did think that, and now I feel like now we're going to have a good relationship. I'm not worried because of what I know now. But, listening to you speak about your kids is the reason why I do it. You said earlier, like, why do I do this? How many people out there that dads that struggle, and, just you smiling, then it makes me smile because it is just a beautiful thing. A father, it's underratedly beautiful as well. I think we're so concentrating on other things and aspects, like you mentioned earlier, in the hierarchy of problems in the world at the moment, that watching a father smile about the love of his kids, I think is just so beautiful. Because say with your daughter, she wants daddy's approval. It's just the way it is, isn't it? And it's just the way life works, really, without social media.
Well, I appreciate those words, mate. I do.
That's fine.
Next question, mate. How do societal expectations contribute to stress levels for fathers today?
I'm really glad you asked that, actually. I've been doing recent studies on this, just to sort of cap my SME on it. And it's really amazing, really an amazing thought. Like anxiety, not the disorder, but just anxious feelings, frustration and stress is at an all-time high for men and women. But as we're concentrating on men today and dads. So a way that was explained to me, which I thought was brilliant, I was in a seminar and they said that basically you got to go back when, men were fighting mammoths and saber-tooths and stuff, But if you imagine a zebra and a lion, if a zebra sees a lion, its stress responses go off and it becomes naturally stressed. You probably know quite a lot about this from what you've seen, yeah?
So are you sort of quoting the book Why Zebras Have Stripes? There's actually a book called, I'm sure the book's called Why Zebras Have Stripes, and it's something to do with their. So like we've got to worry about all these societal expectations, where the zebra's just got to worry about being killed on a daily basis
by a lion. Yeah, so I'm not directly quoting the book. I'm quoting the lessons, which may have got it from the book. But as you can see where I'm going with this, and to sort of answer your question, as we go future technological advances, the more stress will become on humans. And the best thing about stress, the good thing about stress, if I'd like to say, is you can control it. There's one person who can control stress, and that's you, because you can't change anyone else in the world. You can't change the lion that may be around the corner, but what you can do is walk to go and have a drink from that pond if you was the zebra, and only react when you see a lion. But the problem with today's societal pressures is that we're constantly thinking the lion's around the corner. I've become quite the expert, to be honest, when it comes to my own personal stress. Like, I don't wake up in the morning. I can't remember the last time I was worried about anything at work or anything career-wise, a client not paying, a client pulling away and pulling out, not getting a few clients this month. Like, just don't have it anymore. And the reason is because I think the more you do it, like you consciously try and control your stress through the tools I use, it's become a bit of a subconscious thought now. I wake up in the morning and my first thoughts are me, unless obviously something else in the house, like my kid's ill or something, but is me. Okay, I want to go to the gym. I need to drink water. I need to do this. I need to clean. Because, sometimes we wake up and we think, oh my God, what are they going to think of me? Or, oh my God, are the kids, this? So I do that. And then, like, I got asked not long ago as well, I was like, how do you spend this much time with your kids with how busy you are? And I'm like, I couldn't answer it because it's subconscious. I just naturally will go into my son's room, or I'll go and see my daughter, or we'll play a game, or I'll teach them a life lesson. So to loop around to your question, it's a massive deal at the moment because men don't understand that you can actually control stress. You can't get rid of it. You can't turn around and go, oh, stress is gone forever. Nice. But something you can do is control your reactions to stress. So, as use a recent example, my stepson, he went out on the day before New Year's Eve. We didn't get a phone call off him or anything. We couldn't get hold of him at 3 p.m. Obviously, we didn't know exactly where he was. And obviously, my stress responses were at a heightened level. But after it, I look back and think, nope, that's absolutely fine. Of course it's fine, because you're worried. But like another example, if I honestly, I can't remember the last time I was worried about anything to do with work or daily life, money. That's not because I'm endowed with money. Obviously, I'm definitely financially better than I was since I've started my own stuff up. But it's because someone very smart said to me before, what if your legs to fall off now and you couldn't work? I said, what do you mean? And he said, what if your legs fell off? What if you couldn't work? I said, well, but I couldn't work. He went, right, okay, so what would you do? Like, at the end of the day, you can't control life. What he's trying to get at is that you can't control the external, but you can control the internal. So just enjoy what you can.
Yeah, I agree with that. Next question, mate. Good conversation, this, mate. I'm enjoying it.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you. Same here.
What strategies can individuals use to create better boundaries between work and a personal life?
I can name them in 3. So mindset. I'll explain them a tiny little bit more. Mindset, resilience, lifestyle changes. So first of all, like anything, like if you need to go to the gym or you want to become more fitness, you have to change what's going on up here. You can't change what's going on outside unless you change what's going on here. So the first thing for your boundaries, you need to change your mindset. You need to get into the mindset that, work, there's 100,000 jobs out there, maybe in your market. There's loads of jobs. There's loads of different opportunities out there. Okay, it might not be the perfect job and career that you want, but what you have got at home is something that's very special and unique. Like, you have got 100 kids, unless you're an absolute, great breeder. You haven't got 100 kids. You've got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, exactly. So, you've got a few kids, and you can have a career until you retire. You don't have kids till you retire. You do have kids till you retire, but you don't have their childhood till you retire, And I say this with caveats again, but so mindset needs to change. You need to get in your head that, like, the work boundaries that I mentioned, like, you need to get what's actually important about work and what's important about home. And I always do the 20 years ahead game. So I always think of 20 years ahead. So I'll be 53. Will I look back and go, oh, I wish I got that promotion at work, or I wish I got 200 more clients, or I wish no, I'll look back and go, I wish I spent that extra hour with my son. That's more likely to happen. Setting things, resilience. I mentioned a minute ago, you can't get rid of stress. So like I am now, I can sit there and not have to worry about things because my brain goes, why am I worrying about an MOT coming up? It's just a stupid example, but why am I worrying about an MOT? Like, am I the car? Am I going to go in? Am I going to blow up and die if the car fails its MOT? It's not going to be great. It's not going to be amazing, but it's not going to kill me. Like, why are we as humans so panicking about that? And then finally, lifestyle changes. So many humans at the moment, because we don't have a good mindset, we don't have resilience, we don't really have a good lifestyle, we don't look after our bodies. It's seemed as now, like, you don't have to worry about your body. You can look like whatever you want. That's fine. But at the same time, like, you got to look after yourself. And there's so much money making opportunities in the world. So the last 4 weeks of my program, I always tell people, like, the reason I want you to change your lifestyle is because there's so much more money making opportunities that you can do without having to actually kill yourself with stress. So those three things, like honestly, the life boundaries that you have, it'll almost make them disappear. It has for me. So, and others.
Last question on work
Yeah, of
life,
course.
mate. What role can education and awareness play in reducing its stigma around men's mental health?
That is a really good question. A really good question. And I guess the answer would be, where do you hit the buck? Where do you start that situation? Do you know what I mean? Like in school, do we start it at an early level? I mean, I'd arguably say that kids these days are probably more aware of mental health more than we've ever been, like record highs. So that's always a good start. And I think that's where we go with it. I think you need to start early, but what we also need to explain, I think the danger between it is that sometimes if I had kept on telling my son all of his life that I don't know, when he grows up, no matter what, he's going to somehow run as fast as Usain Bolt, he's going to believe it. So the point I'm getting at, with probably not the best analogy to that, is
I get what you're
keep
saying.
on telling kids how easy it is to have mental health and how suggestible they can be, they're going to start thinking they've got mental health issues quite young. So we do have to be very careful where we're not just saying like, do you feel a bit down today? Yeah. Or do you feel like this? Because this is a symptom of PTSD. This is a symptom of trauma. This is a symptom of anxiety. So I think two things: we need to get it young for dads out there, but we also need to teach dads the difference between mental health and mental illness. Like we all have mental health. I think there's no secret behind that. You know, we can all have anxiety. We can all have depressive moments. You know, like a family member dies doesn't mean you're dying of mental health. You just have mental health. Because I think this, and I do get it a lot. Some people will say, "Oh, you know, I'm going through this really hard time. I've got mental health," and it's like, "Have you got mental health?" And it depends on what you mean by that analogy. So I think a very important lesson to teach is that sometimes we teach that not being strong, and you know, like it's how do I put this in a right way? So if I use an example, if I was not feeling great right now, right, there's a very, very thin line, but there is a line. If I wasn't feeling great right now, to go and sit there and put it all on my wife's lap and say that, oh, I'm struggling and stuff, like, I still feel like you don't have to do that every single time you're feeling down. So the educational side comes down, is where it starts to get like, you know this, you understand the traits. Me and you've gone through it, so we understand it. So it's down to people like us, I guess, to pass that information on. Like, yes, I went through this, then I got to this stage, then I got to this stage, then I got to this stage. This is where I would recommend, you know, alerting somebody, because it can get bad. But at the end of the day, we just got to be very careful between the thin blue line, or the thin line between having a bad few weeks because of family members passed away and mental health. And I think hitting it early, people like us who's gone through it, that can pass that information on, is so important. And I think we're doing right by what you're doing with your podcast, you know, what I'm doing on my side, and what you're doing with your coaching as well, and the way you're going with it. You need people like me and you. You don't have you don't have policemen teaching firemen. Do you know what I mean? You have policemen teaching policemen, because they've been through it and they know exactly where they're going. So, yeah.
I was a fireman for a couple of years.
There we go. So you'd be teaching firemen.
Just a couple more, mate. Moving on to, these are sort of the fourth topic, what you suggested before. It's masculinity versus asking for help. So the questions that I've wrote down, mate. Why do traditional ideas of masculinity discourage men from asking for help?
Traditional ideas of masculinity ask for help. I go back to social media again, really. Social media it depends on where you go with social media. If you're lucky enough to end up in quite positive groups, men's mental health groups, women's mental health groups, you probably end up finding the right audience. You'll only get a troll, or whatever people want to call them. The problem at the moment is that social media is confusing men on masculinity. Men think that masculinity is either strong, tough, you don't need women. You need just men, and you can just live life and become rich and get Bugattis. Like what's his name? Andrew Tate, I would
Top
say,
G.
right?
Yeah.
Top G, yeah. And some of the things he said may have been absolutely plausible, but then it's not exactly what masculinity is. And I personally think masculinity to me means that you're strong enough to want to be there to protect your loved ones that are near you. You want to protect your wife, even if she doesn't need it. You want to be there to do it. So if she does need it, you're there. You want to protect your kids. And I think traditional masculinity today and the societal pressures that it put on it just need to understand that. We just need to understand that it's okay to. I'm never ever. You're never going to catch me on a video. I promise you, ever say that I'm not masculine or I disagree with masculinity. Absolute nonsense. What I agree with is not using masculinity for bad, for good, and I can use femininity as well. You could have toxic femininity and
100%.
positive. So.
I've been on. I've spoke to a few people on the lives about this toxic masculinity, and you hear a lot of men say, well, what about women and all this? And that the first part is recognizing what it is. So, I've been on there and said, yeah, I've been toxic. I've done this, but I have. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm necessarily a bad person. It's just I've made mistakes, and I think that is the first part. Like, a lot of it's triggers and people just trying to piss people off on social media and all these fucking debates. And I look at some of them debates on social media and I think this is absolutely chaotic and is so dangerous. Like, really, really dangerous.
It is, yeah.
I don't know whether you heard the story on one of my other podcasts. I was scrolling through, and this woman added me to her debate, if you like. I didn't even say a word, mate. And the first word she said was, "Why have you got a fucking podcast?" And I went, right, okay. I said, because I like speaking about mental health and people's lives and, the trials and tribulations and what they've done to get through it. Are you a professional? She said. I said, well, no. I said, I'm just sort of peer-on-peer conversation. You shouldn't be doing that. The NHS doesn't like it. I said, well, I think you're wrong. All you're doing is trying to monetize mental health and suicide and all this. And I was like, whoa. And within seconds, it absolutely erupted. I was getting called a misogynistic piece of shit and all this. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. So I stay away from all that type of stuff.
I've got a theory straight away that would have broken that down. If you're walking down the street and someone's on the floor and needs help, you don't just stand there looking at them until the doctor arrives. You give them help until the doctor can be there. And if there is people in my circle, for instance, that I think is quite urgent care needed, and they just coaching's just not going to match it for them. It's not just about them getting their life back on track. It really is about them needing general help. Then, of course, I've got an urgent care plan I've put in place. So what you're doing is helping people to realize they need help sometimes. Like if you're walking down the street with a limp and someone says you're limping, and you go, oh yeah, oh you're bleeding, or something, that someone just to point it out, then that's absolutely fine. And you could argue that it's quite toxic, that wasn't it, what was said. So
yeah, it was horrible. But the thing is, though, mate, I've also, I've got a bit of a brain as well. If I've had people say to me, I want to come on the podcast, and at that moment in time, I don't feel as though it'd be positive for them because they're still massively in a certain, whether it's alcohol, drugs, whatever is going on in their lives, they're in the thick of it, right in the thick of it. And for me, that's not where I can benefit them. I think, because, again, I'll tell you a short story. When I first started doing the podcast, I didn't really understand what I was getting myself in for, so I said, I'll do 5 this week. I'll do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'll do a podcast every night. And then after sort of 3 nights, I remember coming home, like, really low. And I wanted to throw myself off a bridge or something. And then I spoke to a guy that I know, he come on one of the podcasts, Dan Phillips, and he introduced me, and I've never heard this word. It was called vicarious trauma. You'd probably heard of it. Where, so somebody who is sort of trauma dumping on you, you take all their emotions and you store all their emotions. And I got a lot of that. So when it comes to what I'm doing now, again, it's not just people explaining their mental health journey and what they've been through. I want to get more of somebody like yourself who brings a professional approach. I want to bring other people in who bring a scientific approach. I want all these different avenues because I am not a therapist. I see a therapist, but I'm not one. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if there is people who are desperately in need, that's not where I come in. You know,
Yeah.
I feel as though that's just going to cause more harm than it would value.
No, exactly. And it's the same with like, they have podcasts out there for cancer victims that have had cancer, and they talk and they talk about their journey. And, some people might watch that, that are going through the journey, but, you don't really, it's very rare that you'd see someone with actual cancer on those podcasts, unless, that they're like, near the end of their, the treatment cycle. So, yeah, I guess you put it in that way, that it's the problem with mental health at the moment. It's like a trending topic, and what I mean by trending isn't like it's trendy. It's like a big thing at the moment, and rightly so. It's being talked about because it's not been talked about for so long and understood, and now it's like new, and everyone's starting to get to grips with it. Not new, but you know what I mean, as in like the understanding of it's new. So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing.
Do you believe that there is some form of trendiness involved with mental health at the moment? Do you believe? It's a difficult thing to say this when
I know what you mean.
You sort of, it can be sort of glamorized in certain aspects when you look at. I was speaking to somebody today, so if I met you in the street, I wouldn't say to you, "Hi, my name's Lee, and I've had an addiction problem for 3 years." "Hi, Craig, my name's Lee, and I've got an addiction problem." Well, that sort of seems to be, and I get it. Everything's being highlighted, and it's brilliant. There just sort of seems to be that little thing in the back of my mind at the moment where I feel like there is a bit of sort of glamorization when it comes to mental health, and people almost want to be sort of in that bracket of mental health. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, so I guess in a way, looking at it, and for me, and again, it's because I have seen it glamorized. I've seen people. I've actually heard people. This is before I even understood I had it, so I sort of nod along because I will not lie before it. I thought it was a myth. I was very stigmatized against it, and I thought it's just and that's just the way I was. But I have actually heard the words of people coming out of their mouth just saying, "Yeah, I'm playing it to get a payout. I'm playing it because it gets me more time off work." So I have heard it being glamorized. It's a hard, very, very great question because you can never ever treat someone like they haven't. I guess my point on it is it's good and a bad thing, I guess, if it's glamorized, because if it's good, that means more people that would never ever open up would maybe feel like, well, everyone else is doing it, so I'll do it, and I feel a bit more safe to do so, which is a good thing. On the other side, I was going through a tough time. I don't know what it was like with your situation. When I did need help, it took me to like hit that rock bottom before I received it, because in Wales at the time, after COVID, there was such a humongous pile of queuing and waiting for the help. Yeah. So my message to that is, if people are glamorizing it and they're watching this, just have that empathy for people that have, really are struggling with certain aspects of it, because I think I've got to a point of my career where I can see it a little bit. I can look at someone and I wouldn't go, I'm going to put $1,000 on it, but I would look at them and think, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's just going to happen with everything. You get people with Munchausen who want to be ill. They want to have sort of empathy. And to be fair, in a way, and I know it's a very controversial opinion, but I sort of don't blame them in this society at the moment. Everyone's blamed for everyone. You know what I mean? So I don't even blame them sometimes for saying, like, do you know what? I put my hand up. I've got an issue or something. But yeah, just have probably a bit more empathy for people that generally are, because if it'd be for me the equivalency of pretending you've got quite a major illness and that you could potentially die from, and telling everyone you've got it and telling the doctors you got it, and somehow bluffing them to take away the eyes of actual people who've got those problems. And so yeah.
Good answer. I've got 2 questions left, mate. I think you pretty much answered one of them, but I'll ask you anyway. What role do media and public figures play in normalising help-seeking behaviour for men?
they play a big role, but unfortunately, and this is going to be just me being my direct self, they're not playing a very good role in it at the moment. The media, quite a poor role, if I had to be quite honest. There is agencies out there, and there is I call them poke hole social media transit. So, for instance, like this podcast or Facebook groups that you can sort of see pokes of light of trying to help and advocate for men's mental health or stressed working dads. But I think there needs to be something out there that really does put it on the cycle of understanding.
Yeah.
We have, for instance, EDI training in work, mental health awareness, and I remember at one point I won't mention the company, but I was in a previous company and it was like mental health awareness week, and I'm not going to go through all the different, celebrations throughout the year and all that, but when it got to men's mental health, I was the only one who put it on my background and all that stuff because it was a remote job. And I'm thinking it needs to have, if everyone should be treated fairly, everyone should be treated equally, and men's mental health needs to be there equal with everything else as well. Because if men ain't getting the help they need, it's going to get It's going to get harder. If people in the UK now who listen to this might be in the USA, and you think life's hard now, if you've got more men dropping with mental health, it's going to get harder.
I agree. Last one, mate. How can men be encouraged to talk about their struggles without fear of judgment?
What we're doing now.
Yeah.
What we're doing now. I personally, for me, I've always rather speaking to another man about mental health and issues like that, because it's more relatable. Not that I don't speak to my wife, because she's been a very pivotal role. Like I said, she's definitely been the one that started me speaking. She pretty much did the talking for me at one point because I was too scared to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Join groups, community groups. If you are struggling with mental health, there's nothing wrong with having men's groups, men's mental health groups. I'm in a few that have been run for some amazing people. And honestly, that's the sort of way we can only do it at the moment, because you can't really rely on, not so much social media. Well, social media a bit, but the mainstream media. You've really got to rely on the few that really want to push this message out. So, like what you're doing now, like I said a few times in this podcast, community groups, those sort of things are the only way I think men are really going to start being able to speak out. Because I'd argue that most men would probably feel more safe, or not safe, more weirdly, because women would probably feel more safe saying it to their friends, but I don't think men would feel more, like, for instance, if you imagine back in the day, I can't imagine me going up to my mates going, "Hey guys, how you doing? Can we just have a little chat for a second? I've been feeling really down lately." I just couldn't imagine ever saying that to my best friends. But going to speak to a stranger about it, maybe.
You know what the answer would be, mate? I mean, if I was to walk into, like, I don't know, let's say the football changing rooms and say to me mates, "Listen, lads, I'm feeling like you just get a fuck off." That's all you'd get. That's the answer. Be shut up, you dickhead. Let's go to the pub.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important for, not strangers are not the right word, but yeah, in a way, like you'll know this, like when you have somebody that's like a sponsor, if you'd like, someone that you speak to on a regular basis, you can go and drop a bit of your stuff that's going through. It is really helpful, and I have that, which is really helpful, and I still get it once a month now, because I'd be a bit of a hypocrite if I said, "Well, yeah, I'm a coach, but I don't get coaching." So I'd be a bit of a hypocrite. So of course I have one myself as well, and so I don't go to my mates like, hey, how you doing? I really need help, because it's a different relationship. So really go out there and please, like anybody that's listening to this, go and find the help. It's everywhere. When you look, it's not hidden. It is out there, but you've got to look. And when I say it's not hidden, it's not like on the dark web. It is there. You just got to search it and take action, not reaction.
Yeah. And that's sort of my next step from what I've been sort of doing over the last couple of weeks, a month or so. That's something that I'll be looking for, is that form of mentor, just to keep me accountable, just for that accountability factor of what I'm doing in life. Even if in 2 years' time, the training and learning I'm doing at the moment, even if that's just for me to benefit. Well, firstly, it's for me to become a better person.
Yeah.
But even if I'm not doing it as a job, even if it's just something that benefits me and communicating that little bit better with a variety of different people, that that's good for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, just for that accountability factor, really, that's all I want it for.
Yeah,
Just to
we all
keep me
need it.
present. And yeah,
We've all
definitely.
needed it since childbirth, haven't we? We've always needed someone to look up. We can't, as much as we grow up to adults, it happens so quick, humanity and the way we grow. You talked about kids earlier, how quick they grow. Like, just imagine our childhood, how quick it's gone. Like how old you are now, you're
That's
looking back,
massive.
flipping out, it's gone quick.
Yeah, I mean,
It takes us a while to grow up.
I'm 21 now already. It's gone so fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm just hitting the 80. But yeah, you'd grow up so fast that you grow up with a mentor all your life, and there is no perfect sort of pass on to the adult life. So where'd you go then? You're sort of in the world, you're on your own, you're the leader of your own life all of a sudden. So yeah, there is nothing wrong with reaching out and like getting a mentor. And I'm glad I did, because my book I brought out last year, bestseller on Amazon, which I never thought would happen. Yeah, it got bestseller. I didn't mention it at the beginning or anything, but yeah, it got bestseller on Amazon in November 2024. And,
nice.
It's my story, basically, from going into hospital, constantly near death, and then PTSD from that, and just getting worse and worse, and bipolar disorder. And I look back now and I'm like, thank God I reached out to someone in the end and said, like, fucking help me, man. Help me, please. Grab me back up this cliff.
And I think you're right in what you say, mate. That peer-on-peer conversation, I mean, I don't know you from anybody, and I've just almost, broke down in tears on the fucking thing, speaking to you about me children. But I think that's brilliant. I'll go away from this and I'll feel good about it.
Yeah, hopefully, mate, yeah.
But yeah, I've enjoyed this, mate. It's been, I'm going to take a lot away from this. I'll sort of go away from this now, have a little lie on the bed, and just have a little detox and a little think about what was said, and come back tomorrow. And again, it's all learning for me, and I appreciate you coming on here, mate. I really do.
Mate, it's been an absolute honour. Thank you for doing what you're doing. You're gonna, I guess, my last bit of advice to you is you can't control the world spinning, but you control you following the spinning around the world around. So just focus on yourself, and enjoy every moment you can. Like, at the end of the day, everyone thinks that by the time when they get to 18, that's it, kids are gone. You've got so much more time with your kids. You just don't believe it, and I'm sure you'll love it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, mate. And I'd definitely like to keep in touch as well, mate. Just speak. So we'll sort that out, mate. And job done. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. See you later, Lee. Bye.
Cool. Thanks, mate. Bye.